Welcome to the meeting of the Marshfield City Council. My name's Ed Wagner. I'm the council president, and I'm filling in for Mayor Testrake. And I want to start out by saying that I express the will of the council that says that they wish Mayor Testrake a speedy recovery and a quick return to the gavel, so she can gavel me out of order when I do it again. Okay, but anyway, so the next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you all please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And let's see. Next up is the identify any possible conflicts of interest. Council, the packet has been out to you. Is there anything in there? Is there anything anybody needs to declare? I see none, so we will move on to the next thing, and that is public period and correspondence. At this time, the council president will recognize those members of the public who have indicated a desire to address the council. Upon recognition by the council president, the persons may address the council, first stating their name and their address. The council may act on emergency matters introduced by members of the public. We have one, I believe his name is Kevin. I can't quite read the last name, but please come up to the podium and give us your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes, sir.
Hello, my name is Kevin Gropp. I am with Central Wisconsin Broadcasting. My sons are with me here tonight. That's Caleb and Logan, an order of height. We recently purchased the Marshfield radio stations, and I just felt that it was important to address the city council so that you knew our mission was to be involved with the communities. We've been over in Nilsville. I purchased those radio stations in 1987. We were pretty involved over here in Marshfield already with those radio stations, served on the Main Street Board, Chamber of Commerce Board, so on. But again, we want to just identify ourselves and let you know that our goal is to work to serve the local community just as you guys do. So I'm always open to conversation. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to address them individually or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, and I guess a belated welcome to Marshfield. Next up, first, are there any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. The next thing is the approval of the minutes of the October 10th, 2023 meeting, and the October 10th, 2023 budget meeting, and the October 16th, 2023 budget meeting also. They're on there. What's your pleasure? Motion by Stauber, second by Spiros. That's to approve, I take it. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Vote. Sorry. I got to get used to the electronic vote. Got to get used to it. And as you see, it passes unanimously. Okay, next up is staff updates. Do we have any staff updates today? Steve, do you have anything?
I'm not aware of anything unless you see someone in the audience, department head raising their hand.
I don't see anybody up here yet either. Okay. So we'll move on to council president's comments. The only thing I want to make sure is that I was asked by Mayor Testrake's husband to let you guys know that she came through the surgery well, and she is recovering, and she's on a speedy path. I think very speedy. I think it's going to be no time at all before she's sitting back in this chair. So I just wanted to let you know about that. Next up, reports from commissions, boards, and committees. Do we have any of those tonight? Nice, quiet, subtle group tonight. What's that? Who has items? Eight. Okay, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Council comments. Does the council have any comment? No. Yeah, no harm, no foul. Right, got it. I've got it. Okay, item I, city administrator's update. Steve?
With the focus having been on budget the last couple of weeks and being on vacation for a few days, I really don't have anything this evening.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Steve? Okay, if not, we'll move on to reports from commissions, boards, and committees. We already know there's none of those. On the consent agenda tonight, we have meeting minutes and reports, Fire and Police Commission, Parks and Recreation, Board of Public Works, Business Improvement District, and there's one item on here. Item F is approved bills from canceled Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee meeting. The Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee was not going to be meeting till mid-November almost, so they wanted to put the bills in here. So what's your pleasure? What would you like to do with it? Okay, motion by Varsho, second by Rigel to approve. All those, please vote.
Mr. Fire?
Yes.
Okay, and it passes unanimously. Okay, there were no items removed from the consent agenda, so we're down to item M, first reading of ordinance number 1497, revised, allowing chickens on single-family lots in certain zoning districts, presented by Steve Bard. Steve?
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, this is an item that obviously we talked about back in the summer. It probably seems like it's been a little while since you last heard it. We had a first reading of the ordinance, I believe it was in early August, and now it's kind of been on the shelf for a little bit. Just a little explanation as to why. Council raised some questions at the first reading, but beyond that, our inspector in the Development Services Department, Pat Kilty, had raised some questions. We started talking at staff level and realized that there were a few things we needed to clean up. And we've taken our time. I apologize for that, but we really want to get this right the first time. And when it's approved, if it is approved by the council, to not have to go back later and amend it for any reason. So here's some of the things that we came up with that caused us to rework this a little bit, and why it's a first reading again instead of a second reading, because some of these are substantive. The first one is just clarifying that this is only for single family lot. If you looked at the way it was written initially, it appeared as though it could be applicable to properties that are in zoning districts that are mainly intended for single family residences, but also allow two family and other uses. And there never was any intent to allow chickens to be kept on a parcel that's not single family. If you think about a duplex, for example, and you're not going to be able to meet the requirements of trying to keep separation for one of the occupants as far as how far the chicken coop is from their house, from their residence, and some of the other issues that might come up with potential smell and whatnot. So the intent was always to have that separation between the party with the chickens and adjacent parcels, which we have from setbacks in single family districts. So we wanted to clarify that this was for single family lots only in whatever zoning districts permitted it. The next issue was who is running the show here, so to speak. The initial ordinance called out for the clerk's office to be the one heading up this operation. It would be a license issued through the clerk's office, and the clerk's office would be included and involved in follow-up. It was determined that this is better suited for development services, and that rather than a license, it'd be a permit. This fits really well with the fact that, as you may recall, our ordinance officers, Bob Larson and Kayla Wolf, now have zoning administrator duties as part of their jobs. They are working part-time for the police department doing their regular ordinance enforcement. They're also helping out with the fact that we're short-staffed over in the Development Services Department. We worked on a good deal that you recall to make it a joint job between those two departments. And it's working very well. They're able to deal with some of the issues of signs and fences and those types of things as part of their duties here at City Hall. So it's going to be under Development Services. It'll be a permit, and the inspection will be conducted by ordinance still, but it will be, again, administered through the Development Services Department. There were some other odds and ends that were probably not as noteworthy, but we found a couple of situations where perhaps there might be a language conflict between this section of the code and other code sections. We got those cleaned up a little bit. And so we brought it to you now in final form. We hope it's final form for your review and consideration. So there's no action scheduled for tonight unless you wanted to suspend the rules. Second reading and adoption would be set for the November 14th council meeting. But at this time, we would take any questions, especially given the fact that there have been some modifications, as you can see on the red line version.
Mr. Varsho, you wish to be recognized?
Thank you. Mr. Barg, I do not see anywhere in here what happens if the ordinance officers get a stray chicken. What are they to do with that chicken? I don't see anywhere in here, and I hate to laugh at it. It just, what happens if a chicken gets out, it's stray, it's not, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks away from where it's supposed to be. What do we do with it? Where does it go?
You know, I don't think we ever actually fully answered that question. We did discuss the other one that I think Councilmember Tompkins had brought up in terms of what happens if somebody no longer wants their chickens. And I think, without sounding too flippant, kind of came to the conclusion that's pretty similar to if someone no longer wants their cat or dog. I mean, we're not really in the boat of trying to figure those things out. But your question is a different one. I get the impression this is not happening a whole lot in our surrounding communities where they've allowed this now for a little while. But I'm not sure if anybody is there from PD who might be willing to address it. That issue probably has not been fully resolved, even though I hope it doesn't come up a lot. I can't see the audience from
the
where
police chief is here. He's walking up to the podium.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the short answer is we're not sure yet. We're looking into see if there's like a farm close by that would take on some stray chickens, or we're open to suggestions.
Yeah, we've kind of understood that maps won't be playing a role in this, so if that would be a thought, it's not going to happen.
If Mr. Werman will yield the floor to the city attorney, we'll recognize you after that.
So again, while this isn't specifically addressed, we deal with, on a regular basis, through ordinance control, with animals of various types showing up in people's yards, some of which may be similar to cats and dogs, others of which are wild. And they deal with that in a number of different ways, and not specifically spelled out in our ordinance because they can't sometimes all be addressed specifically. My view of this is that, again, they may get wounded rabbits, they may get, sometimes it's a skunk and they have to deal with that in a particular way. A lot of things we may not want to discuss, but in any event, it would be similar in that if there's a stray chicken, unless they can identify that it belongs to somebody in particular, they're going to go and either find some place for it to be cared for the same way they would. Again, we just had a conversation in a different context, but I know that, they get often called for wounded birds and things like that they either transfer over to a rehabilitation center, or sometimes they do have to euthanize them. But we don't need to address that specifically in our ordinance here. I think it'll end up being a procedural question that they deal with on a case-by-case basis.
Mr. Werman, you have the floor.
And this might be another question for the city attorney. I was just reviewing some of the verbiage in, I guess it'd be section 2, part B. And it was talking about the accumulation of manure and receptacle that will be emptied sufficiently often in such a manner as to prevent it becoming a nuisance. It just seemed really vague to me. I know recently we reviewed the weed ordinance in the Board of Public Works. We did a lot of picking apart of that verbiage and what is a nuisance, how do we define that? And I was just curious in this case, how do we define that? What is the nuisance of, too much manure? Is it just somebody complains about a smell? Is there a process there? Do we need to list that out in this policy or ordinance, I guess? I just thought it was a little vague and unclear on how we would handle that.
Go ahead.
Again, I agree that that's not specifically defined. The problem is, and frankly, I've litigated a lot over the years in regard to nuisance, and nuisance can mean a lot of different things in different contexts, and often it has to do whether or not it's affecting the use of somebody else's property. That's typically the description of nuisance generally in common law. Here, you're going to be left to, and believe me, if we start picking through the code for those kind of things, you're going to find dozens of references to nuisance and what does it mean, and noxious weeds. At what point is that something that's a nuisance rather than just the existence of a weed on somebody's property? And that's one of those things that really is left to the discretion of those ordinance officers in this context. I think if you try to drill down into this and define that, I'm going to tell you right up front, I didn't pick at this, maybe that, should I said peck at this ordinance, very much, but we've gone into way more detail on this ordinance than almost any other ordinance that I've been involved in drafting in terms of very specific things that have to do with how you got to keep them and all of these different sorts of details, which sometimes helps you address this, but it can also become over involved and sometimes makes it even more difficult to address. So I'm hoping that this is going to work with the format that they've got, but at least from what I saw, I don't think we want to get into what point does manure accumulation result in a nuisance. I think it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Again, it's going to be left to the discretion of the ordinance officers. Again, I've been prosecuting here for, going on maybe 25 plus years. And we have other provisions in the ordinances that are similar, and they really are a matter of proof on a case-by-case basis, whether it rises to the level where it's affecting somebody else.
Mr. O'Reilly.
Thank you. I have a question on section 1, section 9-52, animals and fowl, friend 2C, 2C. Other improvements which may be required. It says the building services supervisor shall, if he deems such measures necessary in order to avoid a nuisance, require that any such building be screened tightly against flies, and that it will provide running water, drain sewer connections, flooring, improvisions to water and such, that other measures be taken properly protect against public health and safety. Could someone please explain that to me? I can't see chicken coops having running water and sewer.
Yeah, I don't have, I'm going to speak.
Yes.
I don't have that specific section of the ordinance, but the reference that you made, is that above the chicken ordinance itself? Is that in a more general provision? So I don't think that they're talking specific about the chicken coops. I saw a couple heads nodding, and I'm doing this from memory right now, but is that correct?
Under animals and fowl.
Okay, so what I think they're trying to address there is that you may be dealing with housing of other types of animals, maybe multiple dogs, maybe, again, it's hard to say how that would fit within the code, but it's not specific to chickens. And there may be a situation where you have a particular type of animal, a particular grouping, whatever it may be, where more has to be done to, care for that and sanitize it and make sure that it's being kept properly. Now, that's a remnant from the code before we put this chicken provision in here. And it may very well be that that provision is not likely to be implicated by most circumstances. Remember back when this thing was first written, there were still animals that are on the outlying part of the city that may have been involved, farm animals and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stauber.
I didn't see it in the ordinance, maybe I missed it, but is there a requirement for leg bands on chickens, like sport hunters will do with pheasants, ducks, that kind of thing?
I don't recall that being in there.
No, I don't believe there is.
It would probably address Alderman Varshaw's concern if there's a wild chicken. I know the DNR issues leg bands for sport hunting.
Are there any further questions? If not, the recommendation is to, unless the rules are suspended, send it to a second reading and adoption at the November 14th meeting. And if there's no more comments, we'll bring it on to item N, request to approve insurance contracts with Security Health Plan for benefit eligible employees for calendar year 2024 by Sarah Dressel. Sarah? It's all yours.
Thank you. First, for the health plan renewal for 2024, in looking at the memo, I want to apologize. There are some incorrect numbers on there, so I will share that with you. It's in our favor versus the other way, so that's good. But the 2024 projections, that line, the last two items, the total increase over the prior year and the city portion of increase over prior year, those are incorrect. So for the total increase over prior year, it says $26,258 in savings. It is actually $226,224 in savings. For the city portion, it says $22,319 in savings. It is actually $192,279. So that would be the portion, the premium portion for the city. So just to kind of go over the health plan renewal for 2024. We did receive a quote from Security Health Plan. The original quote that we did receive back from them came back at a 0 increase. After the initial quote was provided from Security Health, they did have a required update to the deductible amounts. This is an IRS announced inflation adjustment for 2024, which we have an embedded high deductible plan. So it has to move from $3,000 to $3,200 for a deductible, and from $6,000 to $6,400 for a family. So those are uncontrollable, and like I said, IRS mandated. So due to that, Security Health Plan came back and said that they would reduce the premium amounts to by 1.35% on the Simply One plan and 0.74% on the Premier plan. So an overall reduction of 0.95% overall. So this is not an overall cost savings of $22,319, but it is that $192,279 that I mentioned. So at this time, staff is requesting approval to renew the health plan for 2024 with Security Health Plan, continuing to offer employees 2 high deductible health plan options, the Premier plan and the Simply One plan. And I can answer any questions that you might have.
We have a motion by Tompkins, second by Stauber to approve. Discussion. There being no discussion, please vote.
Mr. Fire?
Yeah.
Thank you. The motion passes with 1 abstention. Thank you. Okay, you didn't lose your place, sir. Okay, this one next is item O, if I'm correct. Request to approve dental insurance contracts with Delta Dental for calendar year 2024. Sarah, all yours.
Thank you. So as last year, Delta Dental has done our dental insurance for the city of Marshfield employees and their dependents. We do have 2 options of coverage, and it's really based on the provider that the employer or the covered dependents have. They've provided us a renewal this year with no cost increase or change to plan designs for 2024. So those costs are remaining flat. Staff is requesting approval of the dental insurance renewal with Delta Dental effective January 1, 2024.
We have a motion by Tompkins with a second by Weigel. I assume that's to approve. So, discussion? There being none, please vote.
Mr. Fire?
Yes.
And the passes with 1 abstention. Thank you very much. Okay, request to improve vision insurance contracts with National Vision Administration for calendar year 2024. And Sarah will do that.
Thank you. So as mentioned, National Vision Administrators does do our vision plan. In previous years, we only had a vision hardware plan. Last year, we changed that to also including a preventative vision screening. So the NVA group did come back with a renewal of a 0% increase, so keeping the cost the same for 2024 as it was in 2023. So staff is recommending approval of the annual insurance rates for the vision plan through National Vision Administrators for 2024.
And we have a motion by Tompkins and a second by Weigel to approve. Discussion? There being none, please vote.
Mr. Fire?
Yes.
Next up is to approve the city contribution of $600 single, $1,200 family towards employee HSA accounts in calendar year 2024. And guess who? Sarah.
Thank you. So the city first implemented the high deductible health plans in 2016. With that, at that time, the city did choose to provide employees with a health savings account and provide $600 for single plans and $1,200 for family plans into that employee's HSA if they enrolled in one of those high deductible plans. So this year we are asking for the same amounts to go into those HSA accounts, especially this year it being critical due to the increase in those deductibles as well. So staff is recommending approval to continue the city's health savings account contributions of $600 for single and $1,200 for family for 2024.
Just 1 second, we skipped item O. You were talking about dependent care.
I will back up then. My apologies.
Oh, sorry. Q.
Q. Okay. So scratch that and just remember it for the next one. So first, the city does work with Employee Benefits Corporation for our dependent care flex spending accounts. This benefit enables employees to have funds basically deducted from their paychecks on pre-tax dollar basis for any qualified dependent care expenses that they might have. So for 2023, we paid the administrative fees for this benefit and an annual renewal fee. The annual renewal fee is $450 and the monthly administrative costs are approximately $50 a month. These fees and costs would remain the same for 2024, no increases. So staff is recommending approval to renew the dependent care flexible spending account for 2024.
And we have a motion by Spiros and a second by Varsho. Discussion? There being none, please vote.
Mr. Fire?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're on Q.
Now we're on.
Okay, item R, request to approve city contribution of $600 single and $1,200 family towards HSA, presented by Sarah Dressel.
Thank you. So everything I said previously, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, we have a motion by Werman, second by Tompkins to approve. And discussion, if not, please vote. Item S.
We're not finished.
What?
Mr. Fire?
Yeah.
Okay, that passes 8-1 with 1 nay.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're on item S. Thank you. Okay, disclosure of any interest in low power FM station presented by Harold Wolfgram, City Attorney.
So you probably are aware that we were looking to get a license for a low power FM radio station. And part of that application process, it goes through the federal government for that licensing. The application process is somewhat complex. I've been working with the communication department in preparing that. And in doing so, there's a couple different ways that we have to do this to disclose certain interests. And because of the way that we are set up here, we actually have to identify each of you as a interested party, as the body that manages the city that is getting this license. So you're listed on there as an interested party. And as part of that process, then we are supposed to disclose whether you have an interest in any other radio station, and particularly low power FM. We, of course, we're assuming that that wasn't the case, but we wanted to, in order to expedite this application, get that out in the open and have anybody let us know if you have such an interest. I expected not, except that recognizing the way that I kind of evaluated how we had to do this, there are members that are on another governing body, and those members, I didn't know if maybe there was some issue that something similar was happening at the county level. So that's the thing we would ask that you check. And if you don't know, as you sit here tonight, that you can't disclose, that someone, reach out and make a disclosure to David in the communications department, within 48 hours if that's possible. So we're going to assume and proceed with this application based on the disclosure that we do not have any persons that have it. It wouldn't be prohibited that you have the interest. Okay, so I'm going to use as an example again, if a member of this body also was signed on to the county, because the county made a similar application, that wouldn't prohibit us in any way from doing it. It wouldn't prohibit you from standing in both positions, but they just simply require the disclosure. At the end of the day, because you folks really don't have any financial interest in this, there's no conflict of interest that's really involved, but it's the idea that those interests be disclosed so that part of it is that the way that these radio stations are assigned, whether it's frequencies or whatever, but the idea would be that there's competing interests in those. So if there would be one having preference over the other, that they know that there's a competing interest of some sort. So again, if you have one, I'd ask that you speak up now. We'll assume those that are in tenants don't have that. If anybody feels that they need some time to look at that, I again would just simply ask that you reach out and do so with David, because we will be completing this within the next week. And we'll assume that there is no such interest based on the non-representation here at this disclosure. Okay? Any questions at all?
We have no questions here, but I'd just like to add, I know of I think I'm the only county supervisor rep left here, and the county has no interest in it whatsoever. So, Mr. Stauber?
I would just say reach out to the alderperson who is not present. For sure. We got him covered.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Next up is item T, receive staff update and continued discussion on possible relocation of the police station, identifying additional information desired, and discuss next steps in the process. Steve, you're on.
All right, thanks a lot, Ed. Yeah, not a whole lot since last time, but we need to keep this dialogue going. And so here's what's transpired since the last time we met back on October 10th, or at least discussed this issue back on October 10th. The finance director, Jennifer Selensky, did some digging and found that the amount of city tax we get annually from that property, the Buffalo building, is about $13,000. Pays about $34,000 total. We get $13,000, which is roughly 38 or 39% of the total annually. Also been continuing to talk with our financial advisor, and maybe the next step is going to be to sit down with the council, and look at what we've got in terms of what it would cost and how it might be spread out. That plays very well with the discussion earlier tonight in the special budget meeting about how it might be handled, what it might mean to the CIP during coming years, what would be available to other types of projects, specifically street projects, which make up the lion's share of CIP, and get a sense of what funding and financing might look like. Another thing that we have been doing is continuing to try and set up this tour of the building. I believe Police Chief Goering is working on that, and we had 5 members who wanted to take it. I'm not sure the status of that. I've been out of town for a few days now, but hopefully that will come to pass so people can see the interior of the building in question. There may have been a couple of other requests from the last meeting that were expressed by council. I apologize if they haven't still been addressed as yet. I'll look back on those. I will remind everybody that the property owner would like to know by the end of the year whether or not the city intends to move forward with receiving this donation and ultimately constructing on the site or remodeling on the site. So we need to keep working on trying to come to some decision. Whatever that looks like to council, whatever you need for information, maybe even a special session to discuss this very item, we can do that. I do applaud the comments, again, going back to the budget meeting about priorities and where this ranks compared to the street building relocation or other projects that may be on the horizon. That is important to come to grips with as you make this decision. So take any questions, any ideas, and where you want to take this so that we can work toward your determination of whether or not you want to accept this property in the next 60 days or so.
Discussion. As I understand it, but you just mentioned 60 days. As I understand it, we have a date by which the present owner would like a decision.
Yeah, I just kind of rounded to 60 days. They want a decision from us, if possible, by December 31st, the end of the year. Otherwise, the understanding I have from the Park and Recreation Director is that they would then look at other ideas, such as possibly selling the property to another buyer. So I don't know how hard and fast that is, like a deadline, as opposed to, just looking for our direction. But that's the date that's been put out there for a while.
Anybody? Okay, this requires no action tonight. Then, oh yeah, okay, that one to no action was required. We'll move on to section U. And that is a scheduled special council meeting on Tuesday, November 14th, 2023 at 5 p.m. regarding possible joining class action lawsuit maybe? Okay, presented by Steve.
Lawsuit. Yeah, thank you. Apologize for the typo. I was contacted by Nick Cum, the general manager of Marshfield Utilities, late last week, indicating that there may be an opportunity for the city, but it's going to take some thought. We all have heard about PFAS, and we've had some impact on our water system from PFAS, as have many communities across the state and throughout the country. A couple of companies have been implicated, it sounds like, specifically as being contributors to that problem. And it sounds as if there may be a class action lawsuit building against those firms. And as a result of that, there may be an opportunity for a settlement as part of it if the city were to join that class action lawsuit. But before jumping on that too quickly, there might be some drawbacks to it as well in terms of our future right as to what we might be able to do if we feel aggrieved beyond that. What's being represented, as I said, by the utilities manager is that they definitely have a water impact. Whether or not there's an impact that the city needs to try and recoup funds for to address in wastewater, fire, or some other part of our operation is yet to be determined. But PFAS is prevalent in so many materials, as we know that's very possible. So the idea is to schedule a special meeting for Tuesday, November 14th at 5 p.m. Invite the Marshfield Utilities Commission to join us. They will have discussed it in closed session the night before on the 13th. And it'll be a closed item. We'll go immediately to closed session and discuss what this opportunity is, what it looks like, and what the good and the bad might be of signing on. So with that in mind, staff would recommend scheduling a special council meeting for 5 p.m. on Tuesday, November 14th, 1 hour before the next regular council meeting, to consider this single issue.
We have a motion by Rigel with a second by Varsho. Discussion? If not, please vote.
Mr. Fire?
Yes.
And it passes unanimously. Okay, item V, appointment of Brian Giles to Fairground Commission, completing the unexpired term of Natasha Tompkins, who is now serving on Marshfield Utilities Commission, presented by Steve Barg. Steve?
Thank you. Mayor Teesbeck, who's not with us tonight, is very supportive of this, and this is something that came up at the last meeting. Councilmember Tompkins had indicated that she and Councilmember Giles have talked about this with Councilmember Tompkins taking on the new role, and a demanding one with Marshfield Utilities Commission, that she would like to step aside from the Fairgrounds Commission, and Councilmember Giles was would be very glad to take that role. So it seems pretty cooperative on both parties. For that reason, we're actually suggesting that you suspend the rules and approve this appointment tonight to appoint Brian Giles to the Fairgrounds Commission.
As I understand it, time is of the essence, so the motion by Varsho, is that to suspend the
Yes.
rules?
It would be to suspend the rules and appoint Brian Giles to the Fairground Commission.
Okay, so there's a second by Spiros. Discussion? If not, please vote. This is to suspend the rules.
Mr. Fire?
Yes.
And that passes 9-0. And now to vote on the main motion to confirm the appointments of Tompkins and Giles. We have a motion by Varsho and a second by O'Reilly. And is there any discussion? If not, please vote.
Mr. Fire?
Yes.
Okay, items for future agendas. Anybody got anything? Oh, yes, we do. Okay, number one is Mr. O'Reilly.
Thank you. One thing I'd like an update on, if we could, is the insurance quotes that went out to local insurance agents. Has that happened yet, or could we get an update on that when it does occur?
It definitely has, because we've been fielding questions on that. I'm not sure what the deadline for proposals is, but we can definitely give you an update.
Thank you.
Mr. Varsho. Oh, excuse me, Ms. Tompkins, you're next.
Thank you. I don't know if we need a special meeting, but going back to the item on the agenda about the proposed potential accepting the building, I do feel like we need a presentation where we're given at least 3 options of, if we stay put, what does that look like? What renovations are needed? If we decide to renovate, how are we going to pay for it? And then if we decide to build, the same thing. I think we need to have a presentation with it sort of laid out for us so that we can make good decisions in the next 60 days. Thank you.
So, what department would be responsible for putting that together, in your opinion?
Well, finance.
Which one do you want to put together?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Mr. Bart could organize that. Definitely
that would be
finance.
collaborative between finance, police, and perhaps others. And I think that's a very wise request. A comprehensive approach that includes what borrowing would look like, and what the options would be if we didn't do this. What would we have to do to the current facility? I mean, we won't have all the I's dotted and T's crossed, but that's a good place to go.
Okay, that'll be taken under advisement. Okay, and Mr. Varsho.
Thank you. I have 3 things, Mr. Barg, for you. I'd like an update on the mall project. How are we doing there? I know that was a new kind of agreement that we did with them last year. I'd like to know how far and how we are going on that point. I would like to know how we are on the communications department move.
Okay.
And I was a little surprised at the low FM application that was talked about earlier. I assumed that was put in like a year ago when Tom brought us that to the table. I thought that application was put in to explore that option. I wasn't sure I didn't know that it wasn't put in yet.
Just real briefly, Brian, they only take applications roughly once every 10 years. So I think there's a determination at that point that we wanted to. Now we're in that very narrow window where they are accepting applications.
Oh, and I thought that was last year when he did that.
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right, I'll reach out to Tom regarding a couple other things. Thank you.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? One thing I want to say thanks to Jessica for keeping me on straight and narrow tonight. She tried anyway. Trust me, she tried. Okay. And with that, there being no further business, we'll declare the meeting adjourned.